The name of my story is Little Black Buck. It was December 9th, 2023, 2 days after my birthday. I was with my parents and siblings on Molokai in Moʻolelo, up on the east side. I was with my 15 sheep and goats, chasing them around, riding on their backs, and petting their thick rug-like coats. I just fed them and gave them a tickle on their belly when my mom called me inside. I went inside, I took a shower, then got ready to rest. About an hour into my nap, I heard a gunshot go off. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. It was close to my home. I woke up, turned to my side, not paying attention to anything that was going on. I fell back asleep. Later, my mom woke me up, asked me if I wanted to go to the store. My eyes gladly lit up. I put on a jacket, ran out the house, and walked down the stairs. As I was walking down the stairs, I saw a big black trash bag hanging on our porch. I could see that it was cold and had water dripping from it. My mom saw it, took it inside, she gently put it in the sink, then we headed out to grab groceries and ice cream. On the way, I played the best song in the world, Boombastic by Shaggy. We got home and took the groceries out, then mom was busy in the kitchen cooking steak and potatoes. We ate dinner. It was very delicious. The steak was rich, it had the texture of a steak, but the flavors were different. I was very happy with my meal and a full belly. Then we ended the night by watching Prison Break, then fell asleep. The next day, I woke up around 6 a.m., checked my garden, and grabbed some cherry tomatoes and kukuina leaves for my animals. I called my sheep, but weirdly, only 14 came out. I went into the cage and looked for Bucky, a little black sheep. I called for him, but no one answered. Usually, Bucky was the first sheep to come when I called, but not today. I walked up the hill where the sheep would sleep. I started looking up and down, left to right, then, boom! I saw a big spot of blood on the grass with chunks of wool. My heart sank. I started crying, thinking to myself, what happened? Who did this? I ran back inside, waking up my parents, telling them my sheep died. Then my dad calmly said it was Ames. Ames, the landlord, killed your sheep. I was devastated. When my bus picked me up for school, I was so mad I could not think. I hopped off the bus, made my way to class, then my teacher passed out a sketch drawing. I drew a scene of my sheep getting killed. Then it hit me. I realized that I ate Bucky. I came home and saw Ames checking his jerky. I wanted to beat him up so badly, but I didn't stand a chance. A 11-year-old me against a big old man with a bunch of weapons? I went into the house and showed my mom the picture I drew at school. She was surprised, but took it and hung it up on the fridge. I was so upset when
The title of this story is Mystery Mountain. This story is about my papa and what happened to his 4 friends back then. Back in my papa's early 20s, he had 4 friends from elementary, and one day they all mysteriously died. They got into trouble often and did everything together since they were kids. Their favorite thing to do was go dirt bike riding in the mountains in Waikani. They would always go ride every weekend, and they would stay up there from the morning all the way till late at night. My papa had some good memories with them, laughing and having a good time. His friends would leave him to explore different trails. My papa would only stay on the trails that he knew. One day, my papa and his friends went up the mountain like it was a regular day, and his friends got an idea about trying a different trail. My papa had a bad feeling about the trail, so he just refused to join. He told him he would meet them at the top, and when he got there, he waited for them for hours, but he didn't show. He thought he would get a call from them the next day, but didn't, so he thought they were just sleeping. Days passed, and he didn't see any of his friends. He would call, go by their house, and ask around, but no one saw them. He had a feeling that something bad happened to them. My papa decided to go back to the mountains to see if they may still be there. The mountain is filled with so many trails, and he never went on the pathway that he took that day. He rode for hours until midnight, and left soda cans to mark where he had left off. He returned the next day and was about to give up. Then out of the corner of his eye, he thought he saw a person laying down on the ground, but he didn't know if his mind was playing tricks on him. He finally made it to the body, and he realized that it was one of his friends. He looked pale and had no pulse. His close friend was dead. He looked around the area and found his 3 friends also dead. He went back home and grabbed the trailer and went back to the trails to bring his friend down from the mountains. He felt so bad and had a funeral for them. He thought that it was his fault for their death. His heart was filled with sadness. Those friends were his family, and they thought they would live their whole life together. He spoke about his favorite memories they shared and continued to visit their grave every day, putting flowers and their favorite drinks, imagining talking to them like they're still there. He also explained to me that the mountain would never feel the same for him without his friends. Weird things will happen, like hearing sticks breaking and random beer cans rolling down the mountain. He told me that to never go up there alone, because you never know what will happen up there. This story will forever haunt me and my papa. The lesson of this story is to be confident, to stick to things that you know, and make your own decisions.
Was that my grandma? This story explains my theory on my grandma visiting me as a mo'o or lizard. I was born on January 29th, 2012. My mom gave birth to me, then left for Washington, so my grandma took care of me. While I was living with my grandma, we resided in her house on Waikalua Street next to Greenhaven Memorial Park. While I lived in the house, my grandma's son also lived with us. Him and his girlfriend would always watch me and take me out on the weekends while my grandma went to work. My grandma worked at the Kapahulu Senior Center. Whenever I had days off from school, I would go with her to work. I had lots of fun. I hang out with the old people. Some of them even took me to a park right down the road from the center. They taught me how to play games, and I soon started competing with them. One day, I was at home with my uncle, and we saw this lizard. Lizards give me chicken skin, so I would always observe them from afar. My uncle and I didn't know where it came from. It just appeared one day. It was there so often, we even gave it a name, Jeffrey. Jeffrey would always be on the same wall every morning. My great-grandma, who we called Granny, had fallen down one day. Granny was in bad shape, so my grandma wanted to move in to my granny's house to take care of her. So we soon left the Waikalua house and moved into an old peaceful house right behind Kapunahala Elementary School. Granny was doing better over some time, but what we didn't know was that my grandma was not. We hadn't known at the time, but she was developing a brain aneurysm. Over time it grew bigger and bigger. One night, the aneurysm decided to rupture while my grandma was sleeping. She then fell off her bed in the middle of the night and passed the next morning. She passed away on May 8th, 2019. All of this happened while I was in first grade. I didn't really understand that she was gone. Someone had to take care of me, so my great grandma and grandpa did. I stayed with them for a little while. Then my uncle and his now wife, who were wed in 2017, took me in. They lived in an apartment in town, and I still went to Kapunahala Elementary School in Kaneohe. At the time, my uncle worked at HBA, Hawaii Baptist Academy, and my auntie worked at a pharmacy in Waipahu. A year later, when I entered third grade, my uncle and auntie got a house on Mahalani Street in Kaneohe, right next to the Waikalua house we used to live in. This house was really nice, and I finally had my own room. I was so excited. "Thank you so much," I said to my parents. Felt like I had just won the lottery. Everything was going great. Then, a year later, my auntie got pregnant with a girl. Meanwhile, my auntie and uncle were working on the adoption process. A few months later, my baby sister was born. Her name was Aria. Once the adoption process was over, my uncle and auntie were now my mom and dad, and Aria was my sister. The day we came home from the Kapolei State Office building, I saw a lizard that looked like Jeffrey in my room. It came out of nowhere. I don't know how it got in the house. I was actually kind of scared at first, but after a while I got used to its presence. I started to put the pieces together. Then I wondered, could this be my grandma watching over me? In Hawaiian culture, mo'os are often referred to as dragons, but they are more like shapeshifters. Most mo'os are also females. To Hawaiians, a mo'o can be a family member in spiritual sense. They are often considered ancestral spirits or guardian deities. Mo'o can also be revered by families as aumakua, who may take the form of reptiles or other creatures and offer protection and guidance to their descendants. My parents have never been bothered by moles. It was just me. But a question I constantly ask myself is it here as a guardian? This mole, or maybe my grandma, is still in my house to this day. I also still have family in the Waikalua house and in the house behind Kapunahala. This led me to believe that the people who love us the most will always be watching over and protecting us, but I guess we'll never know for sure.
One more time. Imagine tumbling and crashing waves like clothes in a washing machine, waiting for the cycle to be done. That's what happened to me. My biggest fear is drowning, and I was living on the day I went surfing with my family. We all realized that there were many people and so few boards, so we had to go in sets. I was in the second group, so while we were waiting, we played spike ball. But I realized it was low tide, and I could even see the reef. As time passed, I watched the waves rise higher and higher, waiting in anticipation for my turn. When the first group finished, I waxed my board and paddled out. I noticed that it was very shallow and that I could even touch the reef, but I didn't think much about it. As I was paddling, I saw many surfers catching waves. Some of them were locals and some of them were tourists trying to learn how to surf. But I caught a lot of waves myself and I was feeling confident. So my brother decided to take me out where the waves were a bit bigger. As I paddled with him, the reef started to disappear, not knowing how deep it was. When I saw the wave I wanted to catch, I started paddling. When I felt like I was on the wave, I noticed I was too far forward on the board, and I felt myself starting to flip. I wiped out hard, and I realized that my ankle cord was wrapped around both my legs. As I was trying to unwrap it, every time I came up for air, more waves pounded me underneath the water, making my cord even more tangled. When I was too focused on unwrapping, I didn't realize how deep the water was and where the reef was. I felt my foot scraping the bottom of the reef. My foot was gushing blood. I was starting to panic, knowing that one of my worst fears was drowning. But when I finally unwrapped myself, I got back on my board, looking at my huge cut going across the front of my foot. My brother checked on me to see if I was okay. I said I was, but I was kind of mortified because my heart was pounding as I was in this moment. My brother heard that and said, "You can do this." Every time I have a big wipeout, I always reflect on what I did wrong and correct it the next time. But although I wipe out, it doesn't stop me from trying one more time. I heard his words, knowing he was trying to encourage me. That lifted up my spirit, so I tried one more time. My fear was making me doubt, but I know I couldn't end the day with a wipeout. By boosting my courage, I got on my board. Spotting my wave, I paddled. I felt myself on the wave, knowing I was in the right position. I stood up and slid on it. By doing that, it boosted my confidence. The wind that hit coolly on my face and past my hair gave me a sense of pride. I was proud, knowing I never gave up. This helped me know that failure is the only end if you don't learn from it. Success is a process that involves mistakes and learning from them.
Boat Disaster by Dason. One day, a normal boat trip turned into a disaster. We went overboard and had to wait to be rescued in the rough water clinging onto a flip boat. This happened in Kaneohe Bay, 2019. My mom, sister, grandma, grandpa, and I went on my grandpa's boat. We had a plan for the day. We would go fishing and then we would go to the sandbar. We got our life jackets and we left. We were around the sandbar by the coast of Kaneohe. My grandpa was driving the boat and I was in the back of the boat messing with the fishing pools with my mom. And my grandma wanted to go back to shore because she did not like staying still in the water, and my sister was with her, so they were sitting in the front of the boat. I saw that there was some water getting into the boat from the waves splashing. I thought that the boat would soon be like a shallow pool. The water had already filled up to around my ankles. I looked up and I saw a massive wave coming towards the boat. I looked at the wave and I fell into the water. I came up to the surface because I was wearing my life jacket. I was scared and did a full 360 looking for the boat. I got yanked upwards from the back of my life jacket and pulled onto the bottom of the boat that was now flipped upside down. My mom pulled me up. She was holding 3 people at once, my sister, grandma, and me. I looked to my right and I saw my grandpa holding onto another part of the boat. I watched as I saw all our things float away. Coolers, towels, knives, fishing poles, and parts of the boat. My grandpa had his phone in his pocket and he tried to call the lifeguards to come and save us. Another big wave came and slammed into us on the already flipped boat. I noticed that my grandpa had a huge cut on his leg. My mom told me that she had to let go for a bit while she helped my grandma and sister, and my snorkel gear was floating farther and farther away from us. Against my grandpa's warning, my hard-headed mom jumped into the water and grabbed it. My mom asked if I wanted to swim, and she was very calm while everyone else was panicking. I told her I did not feel like swimming because I felt safe on the boat. Finally, the lifeguards were coming to us, and after what felt like an hour, there were helicopters too. The lifeguards on the jet skis told my sister and grandma and I to jump on the back of this rubber platform. They drove us quickly to the boat nearby. My mom and grandpa were helping the lifeguards hook up the flip boat to one of their other boats. And then after that, my mom and grandpa got into the lifeguards boat. The lifeguards took us to shore, and my grandpa was very upset and felt guilty for the boat flipping. But we were just bummed that we couldn't go to the sandbar because it was getting dark. As we got home, my dad was waiting for us outside. When we got out of the car, he came to hug us and said that he was scared that he almost lost his family. He said that we were on the news too. We were super happy that we were on TV. Some of my mom's friends saw us too. For some time, my grandpa tried to fix the boat, but he could not fix it. And to this day, my grandpa is still looking for a new boat, and we may get one soon. This experience has taught me to be prepared for anything and try my best to stay calm when things aren't going as planned.
A Risk-Taking Future by Aloha. I was sitting down on my bed realizing my finger was fractured, and it hurt when I tried to move it. I knew later on that day I had basketball shorts in 2 more weeks, and so I got worried and panicked. When I went to see my orthopedic doctor, he told me to use athletic tape to keep it stable until it heals in time. 1 week left, and I prayed that my finger would heal before the shots. A couple of days later, my finger was restored to its original state, which surprised my expectations. After a couple of days, I had a sudden boost of confidence that I could make the team. The day came, and I'm at recess, a couple hours before the shots. I heard about people trying to get on the team, but I was unfazed by that. Then it was after school, and I'm a little worried about the shots. When I walked in the library, I saw 32 other different kids of different sizes. They all looked like they were ready to compete. The library was a racket of people and kids trying out for varsity in basketball, which is separated on opposite sides. So I went to sit down at the table to see my friends. As soon as we were excused to go to the gym, I started to get anxious, and I started to panic a little. The moment I stepped in the gym, I knew there was no going back. The charts were intense because we were running and sprinting until we were gassed out. Some boys couldn't keep up and were heaving and gasping for air. That gave me the motivation to keep on going and keep up with the rest of the group. At the end of the drought, all the kids were lined up by the bleachers and they were called up by the coaches one by one. Some kids didn't make it, so I hesitated to go up. When I was called, they were either going to say, "We'll see you tomorrow," or "Thank you for trying out," which scared me a little because those words meant I couldn't make the cut. But thankfully, the coach said, "We'll see you tomorrow." And I was bursting with excitement when I got home. I reflected on the day and it gave me the confidence to make the cut. The second cut was kind of difficult for me because I saw how many people were cut, but the decision came. On the last cut, we were told to line up again, and so we proceeded. They didn't cut as many people as last time because of how many kids there were. I didn't recall my name. I was about to have another heart attack again because you're either going to say the same thing as last time or the opposite. I walked up to the coaches and they said, "We'll see you tomorrow." When I heard those words, I was relieved and thrilled with excitement that I made the team. But knowing what I had to overcome would be stressful for me too. A couple weeks later, I fractured my finger again, but this time it was during our basketball season. And I was left with another fractured finger again, but it was a problem for me because I would have to go to practice with my finger. So I pretended it was fine, but it was difficult for me because I couldn't make my shots. Despite the pain, I pushed through the week. The weekend came and I was relaxing and sleeping most of the time. Then came the week before winter break. During this week, we were told our game was on Saturday after winter break. In winter break, I wasn't even focused on basketball because most of the time I was just laying with pure laziness. Then came our first game of the season. Of course, my family had to come and see me because I was playing my first ever game and first ever sport. The game was about to start and me and my teammates were doing our pre-game warm-up routine. The game started and I forgot what we practiced, so I started to make mistakes. And as a result, we lost our first game. After the loss, we were pulled into the locker room and Mr. Chinen and Mr. Chapman were trying to motivate us for our next game that was coming up minutes after our first. The second game came up, we also lost that game. I got home and told myself, we are not winning the game. Because our team was not compared to other middle school teams. Weeks later, we got better at plays, and as the weeks went by, I started to practice and improve on some things. After 4 straight losses, we head to the gym as usual for our next game. Think that we were going to lose in that same game. We won our first game. I wasn't surprised because of our victory. I was surprised by how many people were on the opposite team, because Moʻolelo didn't have that much players, and they were pretty good. But still, they lost. After another straight loss, our team went against Stevenson Middle and won. Although, I wish I was playing in that same game, but they had to switch up the lineup. The season was about to end. I was satisfied with the record we had, and Toa was too. My record was 2-6, but I was fine with the 6 losses, just as long as we won some games. After the season ended, we went up to teachers, but in the end, we lost. It wasn't that bad if you think of it, because it was fun for me, because I scored 2 points in that game. A couple months later, I fractured my finger 3 times, which reminded me of my basketball season, because I've come in a long way and improved on some things that helped me. I learned to never stop trying whenever things are difficult. With practice, you can improve.
Leap of growth. This is my story on how I grew out of my comfort zone. I'm comparing my progress from the beginning of 7th grade in 2024 and the end of 8th grade in 2025. I grew more confident in Polynesian dance for the last 2 years. It has gotten easier and now I am more comfortable dancing in front of a big crowd. As I joined Polynesian dance again, I started going to more performances. Before I go out to perform, I pray to make sure I get the moves right so the performance can look amazing. But besides all the mistakes I've made during performances, I try my best to remember all the dance moves so it can look clean. When I was starting out, I would often compare myself to other dancers. They would be graceful, be confident in their moves, and look like professionals. Watching them made me think about if I could perform like them one day. I told myself I would work to do my best at practice to improve my dancing. It was difficult to do some of the moves, but I still got through it. I didn't realize that to be a great dancer, you need to work on stamina, which means a lot of conditioning. Duck walks were my least favorite exercise, and I had to practice to improve. I would squat down all my weight on my toes, trying to balance while inching forward one step at a time. Others in the class say that Polynesian dance class is terrible because of conditioning, the dances we do, the warm-ups, but I really grew to enjoy that class. It was a positive place for me to learn, grow my confidence, make friends, and help me stay fit. Sometimes I may get frustrated because I cannot remember the dance and all the hard work that goes into remembering the dance, but with practice, the moves get easier. I plan on continuing Polynesian dance at Castle High School. As I continued in Polynesian dance, I was trying to better myself so I can do the movements that I couldn't do in the past. While I perform in Castle High School, I will definitely remember Kumu Elly because she has helped me with the movements that I couldn't do. I love to thank the other people that encouraged me throughout these past 2 years. When you practice something that is challenging, you can improve and grow your confidence. Stay positive and keep trying your best. Mahalo.
As I treaded up the stairs to my classroom, I heard people whistling outside and was irritated. It's 8 in the morning and they're at it again. I got into my classroom and put my bag onto my table so that I could change. Since we were all ready, we started heading outside. When we all gathered outside, we headed down the stairs to the bus, but it wasn't there yet, so we just waited on the side for a couple minutes. The bus pulled in and backed up to where we were standing. I was around the first 5 people to walk onto the bus, so I got to choose where I wanted to sit. I chose to sit on the left side, 2 rows behind the first row seat. My friend reminded me that I had to buckle up because I almost forgot. The bus driver started driving, and I leaned my head to the side and watched out my window as we passed by the office, then the banyan tree, and lastly, the gym, while we were exiting the school. I started talking to my friend that was sitting next to me, and then our other friends around us while making jokes. While laughing, I noticed that my hands were very, very dry. Noticing that, I pulled up my backpack from my feet to my lap and opened the smallest pocket in the front to look for my hand lotion, but I couldn't find it. Name tag, clip, glasses. I almost thought I forgot it, and I had to look deep into my bag. I put out a small white squeezy tube with a thick green line going across, labeled eucalyptus and spearmint. As I squeezed a penny amount into my palm, I got a strong whiff of the smell. I did not expect it to smell this strong, and I started to worry if others could smell it, especially because we were in an enclosed 15-passenger bus with AC. Rubbing my hands together to spread the lotion until it was no longer visible, the scent got stronger, but I brushed it off because I thought it was only strong to me. Until my teacher asked what that smell was. I froze and didn't say anything. She tried to explain how her and the students she was with got motion sickness and the scent made them feel even more nauseous. When we got to the entrance of Kako'iwi and past the welcoming area, the ulu trees, and lastly we got to the side of the tent, the driver backed up, turned the bus around, and faced the front of the bus to the exit. He opened the doors and everyone got out row by row. I got up and checked the row I sat in to make sure I never forgot anything. Check. Before we were able to go and put our stuff underneath the tent, our teacher stopped us and gathered us to surround her and the student she was sitting with on the bus. Once again, she asked and explained to us that whoever sprayed that in the bus gave her and the student she was sitting with a headache. Although I was about to speak up and say I was the one putting on something scented, I stopped to think about whether I should speak up. What are the consequences I would face if I did speak up? I thought. She'd be mad at me, but my parents taught me to be honest. She gave us one more chance to speak up, but I didn't say anything. She explained how she was very disappointed in who did it and decided not to be honest and confess. I made my way to place myself under the tent on the second bench and sat to eat my snack before we got in. While laughing with my friends and making jokes, I felt guilt wash over me because of what I did earlier, but yet again I brushed it off. When we were all finished with our snack, we went to go do our oli and went to go get our water bottles for the lo'i. The whole time we worked very hard in the lo'i and had occasional 5-minute water breaks. Although I got to stay by my friends and laugh with them, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had something to do with what happened earlier. Once we pulled back into school, we all unbuckled and were about to head out, but before that, we made sure to check where we were sitting so that we didn't forget anything. As I was walking out the door, my thoughts went straight to how I can finally go home after a long day. Someone calling my name snaps me out of my thoughts as I'm walking to cross the street from G Building. I look back to see who's calling my name because I heard the voice behind me, my teacher. She calls me to go to her, so I walk to her and stand by her side. Worried that I was going to get in trouble for what happened earlier, I started holding on to both my left and right backpack straps and started fidgeting with them out of nervousness. She starts talking. Gabby, about earlier, I knew it was you who was using that strong smelling thing that we smelled in the bus. My jaw dropped because I was shocked she knew. She continued, I want to say I'm very disappointed in you and how you never spoke up when we gave you several times to admit. Plus, that really gave me and the student a headache. How did you know it was mine? I asked. Because I remember the smell when you use it. She continued to explain how not only I made her and the student feel like that, but most of all, I didn't own up to my actions and take accountability for what I have caused. I apologized to her and walked away faster to the class. While walking, I thought about what I did and how she talked to me about the situation from earlier. Maybe if I just spoke up and then confessed that it was me, then maybe I wouldn't be in as much trouble I am in right now. Maybe I would have even just got talked to about how I shouldn't have done that and not to do it again. I would have especially gotten it off my chest instead of feeling guilty and worried the whole day. But now my teacher is disappointed in me and I made someone feel bad. After this situation, I know now that I can take accountability whenever I'm asked or confronted with something because telling the truth and speaking up is way better than lying and feeling culpable.
It was a sunny day, and me and my class, we were walking Lo'i at Kako'iwi. I was cleaning the mail and taking my time, trying not to move, because his last thought, I could see something healthy or filthy now. From me, and I freaked out. I immediately started running out there like I was on fire. When I got in law, it was this big, mighty frog staring at me. I was terrified and stayed out there for a good 10 minutes. I finally went back in there and finished my task.
This story is called Band Performance. My first band performance was interesting for me, with a lot of ups and downs and a big learning experience on that. It started last year at Castle High School in their auditorium. I had about 3 months of experience with my instrument. Thought we were pretty late because where we live is far, but despite that, I made it pretty on time because they were still setting up. My nervousness calmed down a little bit until I saw that it was just me and another kid in my section, that his instrument barely even worked. So that kind of made me feel more nervous, knowing that I was the only one that could have a decent sound with my instrument. After about 2 hours of practice before the people started to take their seats, we were the first band section on. We did good throughout all our songs and we finished strong. I walked off stage feeling relieved as I sat down with my mom and dad, until I heard my name get called back on stage. Apparently, I needed to be on stage because what we were playing for was the beginning band, and what we were playing next was concert band, which I was in. And I didn't know, so I just walked off stage into the crowd thinking I was done. I sat there for about 3 seconds, then jumped out of my seat and ran to my instrument. Before I knew it, I was on stage again. Thankfully, the rest of the concert went smoothly, and it was a really successful first concert, apart from me walking off stage. But overall, it was good. But then I had another problem. I didn't have my phone on me to tell where my parents needed to pick me up from. So on top of all that, I still had a problem. My parents not knowing where to pick me up. I was looking back and forth for them, and I didn't want to go into the audience because I thought it would be too loud. So I did only one option: wait. I waited for a good half hour. It felt like forever though. Finally, my parents came out, and I told them what happened. And my dad said he waited outside a little after I left because I got out really early, just as I went to the wrong place to get picked up. So that whole situation was kind of on me, but at least it ended. After all that, I went home and I crashed in my bed, ended the day finally. After all that craziness, I had a few more concerts at Capitol High School and other schools as well, and felt more comfortable each time because I actually knew what to do and what not to do. What I learned from that type of experience is, for me, that the first time is always the worst. That also connects to other times when I first did something. Another thing I also learned is to make sure you have everything, like my phone and such, when my parents aren't there. A lot of things learned from that day, and I think after all that happened, if all that didn't happen, I wouldn't be able to know how to deal with it in the future. So I'm kind of relieved I got that type of situation over with.
This story is called Gut Feeling by Caden. A few days before the incident, we planned to do something on the weekend. We planned to hike on the trail, then go to the beach the next day to sort of relax before the weekend ended and school started again. But now we're here. My dad asked me, what beach do you want to go to? I recommended somewhere in Moʻolelo because the waves, or the North Shore. But my mom said, let's go to Magic Island by Ala Moana Mall. My dad said, yes, that's a really good idea, and it's a very nice beach. But I now became mad because I wanted to test out my new fins I got from Town and Country on waves. I decided to not argue and pack my things. I packed a change of clothes, fishing pole, towel, and swim clothes. A few hours later, after shopping at Foodland for food, we arrived at the beach. I sat my things down and quickly ran to see if there were waves on the airport side of the beach. There were waves, but small waves, not good for bodyboarding or surfing. So I ran back to our newly placed tent on the grass and asked my mom if I could go into the water. She said yes, but before you do, put some sunscreen on. I said yes, and I quickly ran to go to the sunscreen spray, and I put some on me. Then I ran as fast as I could into the water and fell. I swam for a bit, but then my dad came running up to me saying that he almost caught a nice big fish, pupil to be exact, but sadly the fish slipped off of his hook and went back into the water. I thought to myself, that proves that there are fish and I have a chance to catch them. But I grabbed my fishing pole and looked for a spot to cast out my line. After a few moments, I finally found a nice spot on a rock that's high enough so the waves caused by the current and boats will not crash into me. The first cast, I caught nothing. The second cast, I caught a piece of throw net. The third, seaweed. During the fourth cast, a big wave hit the rock and splashed me. I was soaked. But I told myself I will not get off the rock, and I kept fishing. I looked to my right and saw a young fisherman in his 20s. He was catching fish using smelly dead fish bait, while I was only using grubs. I looked at the man as if he were a thief, robbing me of my fish. But even though he was stealing my fish, I was still in the mood to keep fishing.
But sadly, I didn't catch any fish for the past few casts, and I was getting a bit bored. Also, my gut had a weird feeling, like it was almost like it was telling me, like, maybe you should get off the rock. But that thought made me think I was in danger, and I thought to myself whether I should act on my gut feeling or not. Because overall, it's just my gut. What's the worst that could happen? But anyway, I was still stuck in a sticky pickle. So I told myself I would stay on the rock for 2 more casts, then I would leave the area. So the first cast, I caught nothing. The second cast, nothing as well. I was about to get off the rock, and I jumped down and slipped on the rocks, fell on my knees and stomach. I was okay with only 1 small bruise and a cut. I climbed up the rock wall and looked back and saw the biggest surge wave ever come crashing into the rock I was just on. I was in disbelief. If I was on that rock at that exact moment, I would have gotten hurt or worse. I let out a sigh of relief and calmed myself to avoid thinking what would happen to me if I stayed there. But afterwards, I was really relaxed, and I walked back to our tent on the grass and sat down and explained the whole story to my parents. They were somewhat interested but brushed it off in a second. After, I said that tells myself that, and other people, that if you're in a dangerous situation and your gut is trying to save you, listen to it, and it can keep you from getting hurt. The end.
Wrist problems. Do you ever think what happens if you've overworked something? A month ago in April, I found out that I had a damaged wrist, where my growth plates will go differently if I put any more pressure on it. My wrist had been hurting for a while, but I wasn't sure if it was that bad, so I'd just been pushing through the pain. Then the pain got really bad, and every time I put pressure on it, it would feel like I broke my arm. I've been icing my wrist every day after practice and putting pain relief. But nothing was working, so I decided to go to the doctors to check it out. I practiced every day and put more and more pressure on my wrist every day. I made it to regionals, which took place in Washington, so I was practicing hard for my competition. Even though my wrist was hurting, I was pushing through so I could do good when I went to Washington. I would do less skills when I practiced so it wouldn't hurt too bad. It was hard for me because the competition meant a lot to me, and I wanted to do good. After regionals, I asked to go to the doctors because I really couldn't put any more pressure on it. But I was worried that the doctor would say that I would have to stay off it. A week later, I went to the doctors and they said I should try another sport. But I said no right away. Then they said don't put any pressure on it, and they gave me a cast. It was hard not to put pressure on my wrist, but it was the best for me, so I could use my wrist again. Luckily, I had finished my season, and now we are just working upgrades, which are more complicated skills. I still go to practice every day and try to do things I can still do, but it's very different because I feel like I'm getting weaker on my right wrist. I usually just use one arm for now. When we do floor, I just go on tumble track and use one arm for everything. But it makes me mad sometimes because I just want to be doing upgrade skills like everyone else is doing. But I have been doing some upgrades and finding things that can't use any wrist. I still have a week more, and I'm so grateful that my team has been supporting me when I have hard times. I also try to come in with a good attitude and try to do as much as I can do. I hope my wrist will get better and I can do all my skills so I can be ready for level 9 this year. So my message to the world is when facing a challenge, find other ways to be successful.
There's a saying that goes, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. People are so stuck in their heads that they forget about others' struggles. Your words and actions affect other people like how their actions and words affect you. It's not a game. During class at school, we had to present in front of the class and give feedback about how well their performance was. Many people gave positive comments about each other's presentations who went, but I had some lists of what they could have worked on to improve their presentation. However, my mouth was stitched shut. I was too afraid to mention anything because I didn't want to be the odd one out, so I said nothing. That is until it was the next student's turn. Perfect volume, informative, simple, interesting, and wasn't looking off of the screen constantly like a zombie. But most students notice different things. He sounds weird, a kid teases. "What kind of name is that?" another student mocked. He said, a student adds. "Only once," I think to myself. How hard do you think this kid worked on his presentation? His presentation included 12 slides of notes, history, and facts. Do you know how hard and difficult it is to even walk in front of the class and make eye contact with 20 plus students while talking? Think about how he could have felt. Mortified, upset, and insecure. Think about being in his place and how would you feel? Things need to change. Instead of criticizing each other, we must come together as a real community. Remember to treat others the way you want to be treated. You would want them to remember you for being there for them, not the person who made them feel less than or worthless. Try putting yourself in their shoes and try to be better. What do you get out of it? Most people like putting others down because they like attention or that they think they have more power. But trust me, it doesn't last long. We were in the cafeteria and everyone was bringing out all their lunches from their lunch boxes. Then suddenly, "Ew, what's that smell?" the boys suddenly said, plugging their nose. It was a girl's lunch that looked like see-through noodles called wonsen. "This has a starchy smell unlike dry pasta. This is a glass noodle salad from Thai, where I used to live," the girl responded. The boy plugged his nose and raised his hand for a teacher to occur, while everyone at the table joined and started giving insults about how gross she was. But I thought that if I joined in, then people would like me better, that I would improve my social status. "It stinks so bad that my eyes are watering," I mocked from across the table. Everyone started laughing, telling the girl that even I thought it was bad, and I enjoyed it because of all the attention I was getting. After that day, I never saw the girl in the cafeteria, and I felt terrible not long after. Until days later during lunch, I was heading toward the bathroom, and right when I entered, the same girl that got teased was sitting on her jacket as a mat to block contact with her and the tiled floor, with her lunch in her hand. Wonsen noodles. I had a lot of thoughts running in my head. Gross, awkward, but also guilt. Why was she eating in such a disgusting environment of all places? Well, the answer was pretty obvious. This is the impact that our actions caused upon her. Simple acts like this can create enormous damage, like depression, loneliness, anxiety, and loss of interest in activities they used to enjoy. And in this situation, we made her insecure. You may not see how your behavior directs others, so next time you think about putting others down, think about what that says about you as a person. It's easy to criticize instead of learning to understand. But a strong person is the one who builds confidence to stand up for what is right. So I decided that I should apologize. She ended up not forgiving me, but I did feel a lot better knowing that I did the right thing. One day I brought my own food to school, a tuna sandwich, and I had a taste of that medicine. Kids started calling me disgusting, asking why I was eating it. "Because she likes it," somebody replied. I looked up and it's the girl that I apologized to. "Everyone likes different things, so I don't get what the problem is," were the last words she said. I felt relieved and appreciative of this girl, and I respected her. We have our own opinions on things, but sometimes we need to keep those opinions to ourselves. Treat others the way you want to be treated and think before you act. Rather than being your thoughts, be the awareness behind them. What you get is different from what you become. Everyone you meet is going through a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always. Robin Williams. Inspired by real-life struggles and experiences.
What if I mess this up? What if everyone laughs at me? What if I fall over? I was overthinking my first poly dance performance. A bunch of what ifs circled in my mind. And I was getting so overwhelmed, I didn't even know if I could do it. Almost like I regretted being in poly dance even though I was halfway through a year. It was finally time to perform as I walked over to the gym. We were putting on costumes. The room was filled with kids to the point I had to squeeze through just to put mine on. It was difficult for all male dancers due to the amount of armbands and necklaces we have left for the performance. The headband and the armband accessory material was made of fake leaves and smelled like sweat and musk from other dancers worn over the years before. Yuck. The headgear was very uncomfortable and itchy, as if you were wearing sandpaper wrapped around your head, but it was required for all male dancers to wear. Once I was done getting dressed, I hurried into my line. I looked at the kids in the gym. I felt a wave of fright hit me like a truck and come back again. All of the 7th and 8th graders, including adults and teachers, were sitting there, watching. The band group was doing their winter performance, which was cool, I guess. I was mortified. Even more mortified when I found out that my teacher was recording me. It was our turn to do our dance as I hurried forward. I looked around the crowd, scared, palms sweaty, knees weak, and arms were heavy. The drums played as I rushed forward with my group to get into position. The first song played, and I started dancing. I felt like a totally different person, trying my best not to mess up. My legs were cramping, my ears were ringing because of how loud the gym was, since everyone was yelling and cheering on. When I had turned around during the second song, I saw my friend Azzy, who was going to perform with a different group after us. Seeing her made me feel better. When it was the 7th graders' turn to do their songs, we had to quickly sit back down on the side before the drums finished. My legs felt weak and I had a sharp pain when I moved my leg. I had to cope with the pain. Our last song to perform was a Christmas song sung in Tahitian, French, and English, a version of Jingle Bells. One part I was worried about was the part where I had to po'oti, which is a Tahitian move where your knees are bent and legs rapidly move in and out. I had to do the dance move as well as I squat down and come back up, which was always a challenge for me the whole year. But, to my surprise, I didn't fall. When we finally got back up, we had the tapu'uru, which are legs stomping repeatedly left and right, and ku'i, a step and kick move, 2 more times. It was the end where the boys had to po'oti 1 more time and strike one final pose, where I almost fell over. Kumu Elly called out each period to come up and bow or shaka to the crowd. I breathed heavily as I walked away from the audience from outside. Finally, we went backstage to take off all of our stuff, and my headband and pareo were drenched in sweat. I walked out with Mimi and Azzy as we praised each other, even though I felt embarrassed when they went on about how well me and Azzy did. Hearing the kind words made me feel better, except the fact that my legs hurt. Performing wasn't bad after all. I shouldn't have doubted myself so much. This experience made me realize that I can do things that are new and feel scary. As the year went on, I felt more confident in performing, and my stage fright improved over the years. Maybe next year will be a piece of cake.
The Backyard Fire by Christian. Snap, crackle, pop. The trail of black smoke in the air looks like a winding tornado. As I approach the smoke, I see a pile of burning wood, and the grass starts to blacken. I look to my left to see my brothers and cousin staring at me. As I look closer at them, I see that my cousin has a rusty red lighter. The yard is on fire. The night before our Big Island trip, my family and I packed our clothes and put our bags in the car. We haven't been up there for almost a whole year, so my mom thought we should visit my uncle, aunt, and cousins. As we went to bed, my mom told us to be on our best behavior while we're up there and to stay out of trouble. My cousin Paxton has always been a troublemaker, and it always ends up grounded when we're up there. But the bad thing was that he was very persuasive. Me and my brothers, Colton and Cameron, would somehow always end up joining in shenanigans. He's younger than I am, but he's really reckless, does dangerous things, and is a hard-headed person. At last, it was the day we were all waiting for. We woke up around 6 and got ready. Our plane was coming at 9, so we had some time to eat a good breakfast. After we got ready, we hopped in the car and headed to the airport. On our way there, my mom said that nobody knew we were going up except for another aunt that lives in Hilo, and she would be picking us up. When we got to the airport, there were tons of lines filled with people, all waiting to be checked in. We waited for what felt like hours, but we made it. My mom checked us in, and we headed to our gate. When we landed, we got off the plane and rushed to the baggage claim to grab our bags. When we got our things, we waited by the curb for my aunt to pick us up. We had to wait for a while before my aunt came, so we sat down and ate some snacks that my mom packed in her bag. Finally, right after the last snack in the bag was gone, I saw the truck. The truck was a bright red with a sticker next to one of the headlights. It looked like a bear scratched it. This truck was one of the coolest I've ever seen. "Sup, everybody," my aunt cheerfully said, as we put our things in the car and got in. After a couple hours of driving, we finally made it. We were at my aunt's house, and we'd be staying there for the time we were up there. It was very late, so we just grabbed our bags and went inside. The next morning, my parents thought we should surprise my cousin's family, which would be easy because they lived on a lot next to my aunt's. We ate some breakfast and left to surprise my family. It was within walking distance, so my siblings and I thought we would walk. On the way there, we saw two big boars in the middle of the road. They darted straight into the bush when they saw us. We saw our parents' car ahead, so we chased after it. The car swerved to the right and turned into the driveway. As we slowly walked up the long, rocky driveway, I saw that there was a Toyota next to the house. They were home. My parents parked on the side of the driveway and out of sight. My siblings and I waited for my parents to get out of the car before making our way to the back door. We slowly walked toward the big sliding door, trying to not bring attention to us. I'm gonna open the door on the count of 3. We looked in to see my uncle and aunt's shocked faces as we stepped in. We said hi to them, but something was off. My cousins weren't there. I asked my uncle where they were, and he said they were at the beach with some of their family from their mom's side, and would be home soon. Since we only surprised my uncle and aunt, we knew we had to get our cousins. We asked my aunt to tell us when they were almost here, so we could jump out from somewhere. We just didn't know where from. That's when my aunt said we should hide in the Toyota outside. We waited for a while before my aunt finally said, "They're here." Me and my siblings rushed to the Toyota parked outside and jumped in. We stayed low as possible so we couldn't be seen. As we got ready to give them the surprise of their lives, we heard a car pulling up. We looked out the window to see that there was a black SUV slowing to a stop. We watched as the SUV shut off and people started to come out. It was my cousins. We waited in anticipation as they walked right by us and into the house. But as they walked in, my aunt yelled, "Hey guys, can you grab the Amazon boxes out of my truck, please?" They turned around and lazily dragged their feet toward us. We sit in silence as the door slowly opens, and when it does, boom! They jump back in utter shock. "What are you guys doing here?" Paxton says as we hug them and walk inside. "We're just visiting for a few days because we haven't been up here in so long," my siblings and I say. "Oh, nice. But where's your guys' mom and dad?" Paxton questioned. And just as we swung open the door, they spot my parents sitting at the kitchen table. They run in and hug them like they were leaving right then and there. After everyone settled down, my youngest brother, Colton, asked if we wanted to play hide and seek, and we all said yes. We dashed out the back door because everyone else rushed to find a hiding spot while he counted. Paxton and I stuck together and headed to the front. He wanted to run all the way to the front of the yard, but I remembered the truck that might still be unlocked. We raced toward it, but heard Colton coming from that direction, so we stopped. I looked around for another hiding spot and saw a big storage container in the distance. We ran as fast as we could and crouched down behind it. We stayed there for so long that my legs started to fall asleep. Slowly, we began to hear more and more voices getting louder and louder. "I think we're the only ones left," I whisper. "Yeah, I think so too," Paxton mouthed as to not bring attention. I then peeked around the corner to see everyone scanning the area. They were about 10 feet away and getting closer. Only one of us could win. My legs are sore. I was kinda tired. So, I stood up and walked out from behind the shadow. "Why did it take you guys so long?" I asked with a smirk as Paxton followed not far behind. Once everyone was gathered, the older kids, like my sister and cousins, went inside, leaving us younger ones behind. We were all pretty tired from running and hiding, so we decided to take a break and sat down in front of the container. While we were sitting, I noticed something in the dirt in front of me. It was rusty with a bit of red, and about the size of my finger. Curious, I started digging, and when I pulled it out, I discovered it was an old, rusty lighter. This lighter was an older model, so it had a spark wheel. "It looks really old. I wonder if it works," I thought to myself. I couldn't stop myself from sliding my finger across the wheel and making it spark. But there was no fire. I tried and tried again and again, but for the time I had it, there was nothing, not even a small burning flame. It was broken. There was no way this thing would ever work. Yo, Chris, can I see that? Paxton asked. I didn't think anything of it because it wasn't working for me. So I said okay and handed it over to him. I watched for a bit to see if it would start working, but nothing happened. I wasn't as tired anymore, but I was really bored, so I decided to check out the backyard. I got up and walked towards the tall bush and squeezed my way through. After about 10 minutes of wandering, I found a clear spot and moved closer, trying to avoid getting poked by all the branches. Then I spotted two big boars that looked familiar. I noticed that they had 4 piglets cuddled together. Just as I got in within a foot of them, crack! I stepped on a loose branch and it snapped. The boars and piglets ran deeper into the bush and I lost sight of them. Feeling hungry, I started to head back, but after a few steps, I saw a trail of black smoke shooting. I bolt to the bush as fast as I can to get out of the branches, and when I do, I see a pile of burning logs at the root of the smoke. I look around to see Paxton and my 2 brothers staring at me. I look even closer to see if Paxton has the old red lighter. The yard is on fire, I scream. I look at the house to see if the parents inside were watching, and luckily they were. They ran out, and it was a good thing my uncle had to fill up the water catchment that day, because otherwise the whole backyard would have been gone. They drove the water to the back and sprayed the grass as well as the logs. After it was all said and done, we were in big trouble. How could you do that? My aunt questioned Paxton. It wasn't my fault, though. Christian gave it to me, Paxton spit back. My mom and aunt stared at me in disappointment. How could you do that? My mom asked. What? How is it my fault? You asked for it, I say to Paxton. Yeah, but if you didn't give it to me, I wouldn't have set the yard on fire, he says. I didn't tell you to set it on fire, I shout back. My mom stops us before things get too heated. You both are in the wrong. If Christian didn't give you the lighter, you wouldn't have been able to start that fire. But you should have thought before even trying to start a fire. Me and Paxton looked at each other and nodded in agreement. We went inside and laughed about what happened. But the worst part wasn't that we got yelled at. It was that my aunt and mom agreed that we couldn't sleep over her house for the whole time we were up there. Plus, we couldn't play outside for a couple of days. This story taught me that I should think before I act to make the right decision.
The Haunted Heiau. This story is about my dad. It was the first time that I felt really scared. I was stuck on Kapa'akori Mountain. I had no service on my phone and it was nightfall. My car was broken down, nowhere to go. I looked around to see if there's anything that could help me. Then I noticed a weird-looking structure off in the distance. I never saw it when I was four-wheeling up in the mountain, so with curiosity, I walked toward it. I squinted my eyes to see what the structure was. It was a square made out of pohaku rocks. It looked like some Egyptians came down to Hawaii and made a pyramid. I was shocked and confused by what I saw until I recognized those tire marks. Did I run over this structure? Is this how I popped my tire? But what about my engine blowing up? I see a sign off in the distance saying in bold red letters, Kapu. Not knowing what that meant, I kept on exploring. Then I started to hear this weird sound. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Then there was footsteps approaching me. I was freaking out, my chest pounding and my legs trembling, thinking about what is this thing? Grabbing my phone for the flashlight setting, I turn it on and I see a small owl. It was just staring at me, which creeped me out. I started to walk more, looking at this interesting structure. After a while, I went back to my truck and looked for some cell service to call my friends and to come and get me. A few hours went by and they showed up and came to pick me up. Also, they towed my truck. 10 years later, I started to build a house in Kaneohe. It was a lot of work, but it all paid off. But there was one thing that I wanted to do with this house. I wanted it to be blessed by one kahu. When the kahu was blessing the house, I told him about what happened in Kapakori Mountain. And what he told me was never go up there ever again. He explained that there are heiaus, which means sacrificial temple. So that means that I ran over people who got sacrificed. That's why my tire popped and my engine blew up. The kahu also explained that they would sacrifice the bigger Hawaiians to the goddess. After a lot of talking with the kahu, he left. I thought to myself for a while, maybe I should go to places with more respect, also be familiar with the space. But this will forever haunt me. The end.
Fearless Finau. Biography by Moʻolelo Pelletier. On June 18, 1946, Saya Siale Finau was born on the island of Ha'ano in Ha'apai, Tonga. He was the fourth child of 8 children to the late Siueli and Melenaite Finau. Growing up on a farm, Saya was taught responsibility from a very young age. He was tasked with caring for animals and the drying and gathering of copra, or dried coconut, in the coconut groves. Working long hours alongside his younger siblings taught him persistence and the value of hard work. At the age of 8 years old, Saya was left to cope with his mother's tragic passing, which left him deeply devastated. On her deathbed, she gave him advice that would change the trajectory of his life. As the fourth child and heir to nothing, she asked him to look after his brothers and sisters and to seek an education. While still trying to come to terms with the loss of his beloved mother, he was forced to adjust to his father's new marriage and stepmother. After she moved in and became the matriarch of the home, it became apparent that Saya nor his older siblings were her favorite. She and his father began to regularly mistreat and abuse Saya, along with his older siblings, by tasking only them with all of the hard labor and chores. He began to resent hard labor and being under his father and stepmother's rule. After enduring 4 years of mistreatment, at the age of 12, he decided to run away from home and went to live with his auntie and older sister Toa in another part of the island. While under his auntie's care, a major storm struck Tonga, causing widespread destruction and devastation. During this time, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints came to Tonga to offer aid to the people and all Tongan students who were interested in going to school for free. Without hesitation, Saya knew this opportunity was what he had been waiting for. He enrolled in school and became a full-time student. From that moment on, Saya realized that following his mother's advice and striving to get an education would give him a chance to leave Tonga for a better life outside of the islands. The church also paid for his trip from Ha'apai to the main island of Tonga Tapu. Eventually, he graduated from Liahona High School, which was the most prestigious of 6 LDS schools in Tonga Tapu. After his high school graduation, he took the next opportunity the church offered and came to Hawaii to serve a church mission. After serving his mission, he was able to stay in Hawaii and attended Church College, now known as the Brigham Young University in Laie, Oahu.
While attending Church College, he met Frances Ilalaole, his future wife and mother of his children. Shortly after their meeting, they got married and had their eldest daughter, Bella. Although Saya did not graduate with a degree, he continued to pursue his education while working to support his growing family, even through the addition of a second daughter, Louisa, otherwise known as My Mom. Through hard work and persistence, he eventually earned his associate's degree in criminal justice from Honolulu Community College. He was the first of his siblings to attend college in the U.S. and earn a degree. Saya continued to pursue education throughout his life. He also taught his daughters the value of an education and instilled the same passion he had for knowledge. Both his daughters have graduated from college with bachelor's degrees in nursing and education, and Bella with a master's degree in STEMs. After a 26-year career in corrections and climbing the ladder from an entry-level position as an adult corrections officer, he retired as the chief of security from Halawa Correctional Facility, where Saya earned the nickname Fearless Finau. After he retired, he obtained his real estate license, was an agent for Abe Lee Realty, and also became a court-certified Tongan interpreter. Throughout his life, he fulfilled his mother's dying wish and financially supported all of his siblings, living in various countries such as Tonga, New Zealand, and Australia. He was able to sponsor his brother Vala, along with his wife and 4 children, his younger sister Fifita, and his youngest brother Isaac, all to come to Hawaii for a better life. The help he offered went beyond the confines of his family, and he frequently counseled and supported many others in the community. He admonished everyone he knew to get an education, to work hard, and to persevere. My grandpa embodied strength, bravery, and courage, and led an exemplary life. Although he is gone, his legacy continues to live on, and he still plays a preeminent role in our family. He taught us that if you believe in yourself, work hard, and persevere with fearlessness, there are no limits.
Years ago when I was in kindergarten, I was fond of drawing and somewhat painting. It was my favorite thing to do and was known for being the young artist in my family. When I was in my classroom, my teacher announced that there's going to be an art contest. Sight is beautiful. My eyes grew bright. I rushed home explaining to my family how I should enter the contest. My mom said, "Of course, even if you fail or lose, all that matters is you tried." My dad on the other side agreed. I took their advice and willingly signed up. Hearing the news of me being in the contest and getting to draw got me ecstatic. I would go home and practice sketching out ideas, trying to find the best art to submit. This time at school, I went in the back of my class on a little table to focus on my drawing. I drew out with oil pastels on a big sheet of paper. A hula girl wearing a green lei and a tea leaf dress dancing on a sandy bright beach with a blue wave crashing against the shore. My teacher, Miss Ishii, loved my drawing so much, which made me want to submit it, until a disaster abruptly happened. I had a glass of water next to my artwork and it spilled. The drawing was ruined. I was so upset about this that I eventually gave up this whole thing. Art was my passion and hobby, but the calamity of the event made me overwhelmed. Since I was young, I was a bit of a prima donna and was usually boiled with anger. I thought I'd always fail at some point during some important projects, or naturally my own artworks I do in my spare time. I always doubt myself. Experiencing this made me distraught, and the contest was due next week. I sat home unsatisfied with myself. That night, I decided to just shake it off and sleep. The next day settled in, and I still had no idea what to draw since my first project got ruined. When I arrived at school, I went ahead and tried searching for something for my new project. I still had no idea, which made me even more frustrated. Then, an image came to my mind. I don't just like drawing, but I also really like flowers. My favorite flowers were roses, plumerias, and lily flowers. After this thought, I was thinking of drawing a simple group of tall flowers with a nice blue sky. I drew on a big piece of paper in class and received tons of compliments, along with my teacher. "Oh, that's so nice. How'd you draw that? That's really good." The compliments I received made me feel a bit more confident and uplifting to me. Thinking I'd fail at the time, but hearing other people's opinion and thoughts of what they think makes me delighted by them acknowledging my accomplishments and ignoring my failure. I soon submitted my art to the people at the mall where the art contest would be held. Days passed by, and it was time to go to the Windward Mall for the event. There were tons of people and kids who signed up, which made me a bit anxious, but I still tried to be confident. On top of that, there was a guy on the stage naming kids up to the front to show their artworks. After a few kids went, it was finally my turn. I held up my paper I drew and people took pictures. The crowd would applaud and stop as soon as I stepped foot off the stage. One at a time, there were kids walking up the stage, introducing their drawings and walking back. The results came in and the guy announced the winner of the Sight is Beautiful art contest, Milana Noel. I had won my first contest. I was so happy and proud. My family hugged me and took another round of pictures, and I received a certificate along with different leis. When you give up on trying things, don't count yourself as a failure, but embrace it and learn from your mistakes. I've learned from my past attempts by making failures and intending my absolute best instead of being tempered.
It was a week before spring break, and my mom and dad were having a conversation when they stopped and told me we're going to Japan for spring break. I was super excited because it's my second time going to Japan. The first time I went to Japan I was 7 to 8 years old, so I barely remember that trip. This time I'll make some core memories. I slept during the entire flight to Japan so that I would have a lot of energy when we arrived. We arrived in Tokyo, the city life of Japan. The first thing we did was eat some good food. The chicken katsu is way better than it is here in Hawaii. We then went to our hotel. It was the most fanciest place I've been to. The first full day in Japan we went to our arcade, and the funnest game we played was a shooting game. The goal of the game was to kill all the skeletons, but other than that, it was a competition between me and my parents. My mom won. After the arcade, we went back to a hotel, and it was a long way to find our hotel because we got lost. The taxi man didn't understand us because he was speaking Japanese. Although my mom can speak Japanese, she's not fluent, so I think it got lost in translation. Thank God my mom figured out how to get back to the hotel. The culture in Japan is very different than it is here in Hawaii. The streets are super clean and the people are very friendly and helpful. The next memorable thing we did in Japan as a family was ride a bullet train going to Nintendo World. It reminds me of an airplane. It felt like a super fast car the whole time. The train ride was super long, but I can't imagine how much longer it would be if we weren't going almost 200 miles per hour. We finally reached Osaka, and our first stop was Nintendo World. My parents took a bunch of pictures. My favorite ride we rode there was Koopa's Challenge. I was driving the car and we all had VR set on our heads. It was a shooting game competing to see who can earn the most coins. I had an amazing time at Nintendo World, and finally it was my parents' turn to pick something they wanted to do. They wanted to look at some paintings. At first, I wasn't excited to look at the paintings, but when I got there, I could see the reason why they wanted to come so bad. The paintings were beautiful. The day was well spent, and we took a bullet train back to Tokyo. Overall, the point of my story is realizing how much my parents do for me. I'm grateful for all the things they provide for me, materialistic things, and all the memories I make with them as well. They try their very best to give me everything in the world. During the majority of the trip, they found things that sparked my interest, even though they may have wanted to do something differently. It shows how much they love and care for me. This trip brought me closer to my family.
Hi, my name is Raylan, and this is my Mo'olelo, and it is called Bad Nose to Good Nose. Jumps in excitement. During summer, 3 years ago at home, I was in my room and I got my first nail supplies from Amazon. I got a UV light, gel polishes, nail charms, nail tools, brushes, and a palette. I was so astonished I started opening my nail kit and getting everything ready to make nails. I started off looking for nail inspos, so when I looked for the perfect picture that I like, I started recreating it. It had white French tips with small flower charms. It was pretty basic because it looked easy. When I got to doing the French tips, I was already so frustrated because I had to make it clean and the same. It took 6 hours doing my nails. I was exhausted. My nails looked messy. The French tips were messed up and uneven. The charms were in the right place, but it was just not it because how clumpy it was. The next day, I looked for a different inspo. It was an aura nails with a light blue base and the aura was a navy blue. I had to use an eyeshadow palette and a brush because I didn't have the actual airbrush for my nails, so I had to get creative. Once I started getting into it, it looked pretty okay, but slightly disappointing because the navy blue wasn't sticking onto the nail. So this one took me 5 hours. After finishing the nails, I started taking just a few days off from doing nails because how difficult it can be. But after a few days, I was scrolling through my phone and I saw nail tutorials and inspos and recreating them, which it had yellow French tips with these white hibiscus flowers. I thought that if I took a break from doing nails, I would get better because since I was tired from doing the nails the last time. But no, it turned out so bad, I just started pretty much giving up and it was not worth it. So it's been about a year, still having my whole stack of nail supplies in my cubbies in the closet. It was so messy, my mom had asked me if I wanted my nails, but I just said no, just throw them all away. It was difficult at that time because every time I finished doing my nails, it made my back and neck sore. It even got me an emotional breakdown because once I'm done, it turns out so bad, I even just quit right in the middle of doing my nails or making them. After 2 years, on December 26, I started scrolling through nails on Pinterest and TikTok. It made me want to get nails again because of the design and the art of it. I decided to tell my mom if she can buy me the same nail supplies that I had before. And she said, okay. Few days after, it was New Year's Eve, my nail supplies came in. I was so happy that I got my nail supplies back. I started watching nail tutorials on YouTube and TikTok to keep practicing doing nails. It felt like I was in nail school, watching and learning different types of nail shapes and the art designs. When I got my nail supplies, I started to just use my own imagination first. So I did glitter nails as my base with white French tips, fake diamond charms, and this white 4-pointed star. I was watching how to do a French tip tutorial on TikTok. I started focusing on the French tip, trying to make them even, and once I did it, I kinda got the hang of it, while the white gels all over my fingers, making my hands and fingers sticky. After 4 hours, once I was done, I was pretty impressed with the French tip. It was messy, but I liked it. After the next few days, I've been practicing doing nails, and once I was getting into it, I came across this one girl's YouTube account whose username was Sion-K. She makes nail tutorials and shows how her setup is. I picked this one video of her that was called How to Do Gel-X Nails Like a Pro. The designs had aura nails with the base shade of nude colors with this white blooming gel. Then it had black French tips with the 3D flower and tiny gold charms. I started summer at 4 and finished around 7 or 8 something. As I was done, I was pretty impressed with the nails I made because I focused real hard to get better at doing nails. Once I finished my nails, this made me stunned. It was my favorite set that I did. I kept taking pictures and showing my sisters. I was very proud of myself, so I started making more nails till all the way up till today. But I still do take breaks. I made another nail set that was Aloha kind. It had black and brown Hebrew patterns, white French tips with black and brown dots, black French tip with the white swirl, and a yellow pu'ukenikanile. It took 4 hours, and I made it like 2 months ago. I was worn out, but I was amazed by it. Every time I showed my sisters my nails, they're always like, "Oh my god, that's so cute." So last month, my sister told me that I should do her nails, so I agreed. She wanted the Aloha nails that I made the last time. It took 4 hours doing my sister's nails, and when I was done, it turned out so good. She was very cheery, and when she would go to work, she would always tell me that there would be some kids complimenting her nails, and I always feel so satisfied by that. So I've always been practicing nails once in a while. A few days ago, I asked my mom if she can get me a white solid beauty gel, new slim brushes, a milky pink gel polish color, charms, press-on stamps to help me hold the nails in places, medium and short almond nails, and long square nails. I was very happy that half of my nails came in, even though that there was still some stuff that had to come. Till this day, I've improved by doing nails, and I didn't stop when it got hard. I kept going, and I believed in myself. The end.
Standing up. It was a long time ago when this story happened, about 3rd grade. I had a best friend, for now let's call her Izzy. Izzy and I would always go to lunch together, for there was never a day we wouldn't. With us at the lunch table there would sit 2 people. For now let's call them Matt and Leia. They usually got school lunch while Izzy and I would always have home lunch. But what's so important about that, you may ask? Well, Izzy would almost always bring pickles in her school lunch. It was one of her favorite snacks. But Matt and Leia found that weird. Gross, even. Embarrassed, Izzy put her pickle back into her lunchbox, grabbing another food item as she kept her gaze away from Matt and Leia. Looking at Izzy, my heart felt heavy. Poor Izzy. I don't see the problem with her lunch. It's just a pickle, I thought to myself, taking out my own lunch. I kept quiet, not daring to say anything back to Matt and Leia, for they were the popular kids. This unfortunate occurrence happened daily. Izzy getting bullied for bringing pickles and me not standing up for her. The one day I tried to stand up for Izzy, Matt and Leia ridiculed me as well, causing me not to dare to speak up to them ever again. I was scared to even tell a teacher about the situation, in case Matt or Leia would ridicule me again. Even worse, Izzy. After weeks of this bullying, one day I walked to lunch as usual.
looking around for Izzy, for I didn't see her all day. Asking around, I searched and searched for her. At that point, I thought she stayed home sick. My theory quickly faded as this continued on for weeks. Finally, I went up to the teacher and questioned where she was. Answering, the teacher told me she'd become homeschooled. I stood there in shock for a while. My heart became heavy with guilt as I thought to myself, I should have kept standing up for her. At the least tell a teacher. That I finally did the following day. Once I told the teachers, they barely did anything about it. Izzy was already homeschooled. They couldn't do anything more. The guilt hung on to me for weeks. I thought over and over again about how I could have stood up for her, not just the one time. This whole situation, this story, has really taught me that you should stand up for others, even if it's just telling a teacher.
Every year, my family goes to Ulu Aʻe Beach Park to celebrate my grandma's life. My grandma passed away on July 4th, 2018. Ever since her passing, my family and I have been going to Ulu Aʻe Beach Park. It started to become a family tradition every 4th of July. Whenever July started, I was so excited knowing that we were going to Ku'ulua, but one year we had gone, it had left me with chills. We had gotten to Ku'ulua, and some of the tents and chairs had already been set up, so my mom told me to help out. As I started helping, the rest of my family started to show up. I was so excited because my cousins were finally here. My dad called out to me to help set up the volleyball net so that we could all play once everybody was settled. While we were playing volleyball, my uncle called my whole family to shore because he said we would be paddling out to Moʻolelo. My cousins and I ran to the canoe so we could be the first ones on. On the canoe were my cousins, uncles, and I. Before we paddled out to Moʻolelo, the rest of my family were putting flowers in the water as an offering. As soon as they were done, they pushed us out to sea, and we began paddling to Moʻolelo. A little while after we started paddling, I had noticed that there was a turtle following us and coming closer to our canoe. I didn't really think much about it until it was following us all the way to Moʻolelo. That's when I had thought, is this my grandma's spirit following us? Even though this may not be true, could this really be a coincidence? As we were paddling back to shore, I felt so shocked. I kept asking myself, was that really my grandma's spirit? I didn't really want to tell anybody because they might call me delusional. I had jumped out of the canoe with chills and goosebumps. This made me realize to never forget about your family who had passed and to always keep their legacy alive.
Ulu Aʻe. As I was getting ready for summer school, my mom called me out into the living room with some great news. The news was that I got an email from my kumu saying that she had chosen me to do Ulu Aʻe with my hula sisters for the halau. I was a bit surprised because the thing was that I wasn't as good as them since I just joined around a year ago, soon to be 2 this upcoming summer. I was really happy and a bit proud because I had never expected anything like this to happen to me. A couple of weeks later, I had my first practice for the kahiko dance. It was pretty difficult at first, and I thought it wouldn't really get much harder, but of course I was incorrect, and it became more tough, but not only the dance, so did the kumus. So I had to practice even more. We would sometimes even get separated into different groups that matched each other's progress level also. As we were getting closer to fall, we ran through the dance consistently, and we even changed locations to this elementary school in Kailua. We would practice on fall break and even on school nights all the time, sometimes till almost midnight. The worst part was that I had an upcoming performance for 24/7 Dance Force as well. So after rehearsal for them in town, I had to drive back to Kailua for hula practice. I was tired all the time, but thankfully rehearsal for 24/7 wasn't every day until performance came for them, so I had to skip an hour of hula practice just so I can perform for 24/7. After the finale ended, it was around 4 p.m. since this was an earlier ending performance. I then had to grab all my costumes from backstage and hop into the car to drive to Kailua for Ulu Aʻe practice. The competition was now 3 days away, and so we had to practice in the hotel where it was going to take place at. Since it was only 3 days away, we had to practice in a small room for an hour or two waiting for the staff to set up the stage for us. They were now finished setting up the stage, so we were able to go on practice movements without hitting each other. On the first day of the competition, it was now the day Āina performed, and I was happy because I was only performing kahiko since I just joined not too long ago, and I still needed more training. We now had to wait in our dressing room most of the time. It was pretty cold in there, plus we didn't have much to do but talk to each other, which was basically it. Now it was the day that Kahiko performed, and it was also the day of the award ceremony, since it was the last day. I arrived around 8:30 to 9 a.m. and it was pretty early and I was tired, but not as much because I got a good night's rest the night before. As I arrived on the floor we were performing, I said hi to all my hula sisters and we took a group photo together as we waited for our kumu to arrive and unlock the door for us. Once she arrived, we all went in and sat down on the ground. After an hour or two, we unbraided our hair and helped our hula sisters with it as well, because it took a while. As we changed into our kahiko outfit, we had to go into 3 lines and our hula aunties helped make sure the skirt was tight and secured. After all of our skirts were secured, we went back into the 3 lines so they could also help us put on our lepo'o and our kupe'e. They also brushed out our hair and did hairspray so it would stay in place and be poofy. As they were doing that, our kumu was spraying right before we got excused from the dressing room. While we waited for our turn to go on stage, my heart was pounding. I was shaking and also a bit scared because I didn't want to end up messing up. Once it was our turn, we walked up the ramp and chanted. While we were performing, I tried not to overthink my moves and also tried my best to be confident in every movement, but making sure to smile as well. Once we got off stage and went back into our dressing room, I was relieved it was all over. We now got to sit with our parents and hula sisters in the crowd to watch our hula aunties perform, but I fell asleep on the chairs and missed half of the other contestants perform. After a couple hours, I had to go back to my dressing room to change into our ceremony dress. Once it was time for the awards ceremony, we all sat down and waited. As they announced who won Kahiko, it turned out to be us and that we won first place. We also placed in all the categories we danced in, which was great as well. It was around 9 p.m., so once we got back to the dressing room, we took a group photo, gave out leis, and grabbed all our stuff and left. I was so tired once we got home I knocked out. What I learned from this experience was that I should be confident and not give up too easily on stuff I worked hard on.
Everyone was panicking. My cousins and older brothers were running up and down the beach looking, but still, there was no sign of him. What even happened? I'll tell the story about when my little brother almost drowned. On a very beautiful and sunny day for the beach, nothing looked like it could go wrong. But this day, my life almost changed. My mom called for me and my brothers to load up the car to get ready to go to the beach. We were so excited to go and see all our cousins and family. My mom starts up the car and we drive off. After what seemed like hours, I started getting sleepy in the car. My brothers started talking to me about something, but I'm too tired to understand them. Eventually, I fell asleep until a sudden stop jolted me awake. We were already at the beach. I got excited as I opened my eyes and see the sign that says Hukila. We set up our things and see all our cousins, but before we can jump in the water, we have to say a prayer. My oldest brother Haloha volunteers to say it, and after we pray, we can go swim. After we swim for a while, me and my cousins decide to get out. We will go rest on the sand, but as we walk out, we see my dad and little brother going in. The water was calm, so I didn't think much about it. After we find a place to sit, I see the waves are starting to get bigger. I look around and I see my dad and little brother playing in the waves. My dad notices a big wave starts to form and lifts up my little brother in the air. But the wave hits my dad and he gets pounded, and my little brother slips out of his hands and into the water. My dad panics as he gets up and can't find my brother. He calls out for help and says Atu was swept away. Everyone heard him, and all my family rushed to the water and start looking for him. Everyone was panicking. My cousins and older brothers were running up and down the beach looking, but there's still no sign of him. Me and my cousins were young and didn't understand what was going on, so we couldn't help. But we see my mom breaking down and my auntie walking up to her. Noi, you have to pray. How? My son is missing. Noi Lenny, you have to listen to me, my auntie tells her. My mom looks at my auntie with tears in her eyes, and they both dropped onto their knees and began praying.
Heavenly Father, please help me find my son. Amen. As soon as she opened her eyes and said amen, two little baby legs start floating up here in the water, floating upside down. My dad quickly scoops him up and brings my brother to shore. My mom runs down to make sure that he's okay. And by some miracle, after being under the water for minutes, my little brother was completely fine. We left the beach that day feeling lucky and grateful that he was safe. I believe God was watching over my brother and keeping him safe when he was lost. This experience taught me to trust in God, and He's always there when you need Him.
Me, my grandma, my grandpa, and my great-grandpa all lived in the same house. I walked into my great-grandpa's room with his jug as he lay in bed, and I left it on the table because I assumed he was sleeping. His room was dark and it smelled like old man, but it had a comforting feeling in his room. He was in his early 90s. Me and him had a kind of good relationship because we would always play cards, board games, and I would watch his favorite sports with him. I would come home from school and go straight to his room and tell him about my day. After 3 hours of giving my grandpa his jug, my grandma went to go check on my grandpa. As she came out, she was sobbing, and she said he had passed. I was little, so I was confused, and I didn't understand why she was crying and what passing meant. My Uncle Lane had told me that passing away is another way of saying dead. Once he told me that, this indescribable feeling hit me. I didn't know what to say. I just was sad, and I was in shock that it happened on a random Saturday. Next Saturday, we had his funeral, and the whole family was there. Some family members I've never even seen before. We were all sad and distraught about his loss, and we really missed him. As the day went on, more and more people started to leave the funeral like nothing ever happened, and the only people that stayed was the people who was closest to him. Once the funeral was over, we packed up and went home. It was a very silent car ride. Once we got home, I ran into his room and something instantly fell off. The room felt cold and lonely, almost like if someone just walked out and left their presence behind. On Sunday, the next day after the funeral, my grandma's dogs Tinkerbell and Hoku ran straight into my grandpa's room. They started sniffing around, and once the dogs realized my grandpa was no longer there, the dogs became sad and really lazy. After 3 days, the dogs became happier. They would always sit in the door frame, wag their tail in sync left to right. I would always wonder why the dogs would do this. My grandma realized the dogs could see my grandpa's spirit. That's why they were happier and wagging their tails and laying in the room. There's a saying that dogs can see what humans can't see, and this is a perfect example of it. It was comforting to know that my grandpa was still in the house, watching over us just in case anything bad happens.